Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set? Cocked, locked, blissed? Dr. Shealy, are you blissed?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. You know, Dr. Shealy, now that the president, the first lady, governors, congressmen, and mayors have gotten the China virus, a widely reported bioweapon, a widely reported man-made weapon, it seems that likely that our relationship with China has changed. President Trump may look at the China virus as an assassination attempt on his life and that of the First Lady and our government and our people as a whole. And,
well, again,
yes.
Vince, the entire thing is such a sham. And it's on the whole world. And although it's blamed on the Chinese and apparently is part of them, the ability to cause every country almost in the world to go the way it has can't be just the Chinese. It's got to have some other evil force behind it, in my opinion.
Well, I don't disagree with that. I hear what you're saying I believe I hear what you're saying as this has been used, to get every country down on its knees to lock down, etc., stifle manufacturing, put fear and panic, across the world. And it's a great tool for doing that. I mean, it's a great tool for doing that. It's an evil tool. I'm not saying it's benevolent in any way. It's evil. But I believe that, as far as tools go, this is one that's really worked very well. And we haven't seen people so afraid, since World War II, when Adolf Hitler was, trying to get his way. But this is and it's brilliant because it's nameless, it's faceless, can't tell who has it.
The battle against Hitler caused lots of positive enthusiasm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It didn't cause as much fear outside of Europe as it did, let's go get him. Yeah.
Well, in that line of thinking, Dr. Shealy, do you remember seeing, when you were younger, because I remember seeing when I was younger, the expression, Kilroy was here. Do you remember seeing that?
I was alive when that was created, son.
Yes. Yes. And, class, Kilroy, Kilroy, is the name of, we don't really know exactly, but it appears that it was the name of a character of the U.S. military. And where we went in Europe and other places, we would leave, behind either in chalk or paint or something under bridges. Kilroy was here, meaning we were here. We were here, and we were everywhere, in World War II. And that was just our way of saying, our GI's way of saying we were here. And after the war, I remember seeing it under a bridge that, there's an overhead, railroad type bridge, and you would drive under that, and it was made out of concrete. And for at least a couple decades, it said Kilroy was here. Nobody removed it. Kilroy was here. And it was hand painted. It was like the original, or maybe early graffiti in the United States. Kilroy was here.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Dr. Shealy, I was thinking, we got a call from our neighbor, and we hadn't heard from him in a while. And he sounded out of breath, and we asked how he was doing. He said, well, he's getting better. He had or still is on the tail end of the coronavirus. And we said, well, how's the rest of the family? Well, everybody got it. So evidently his whole family, and we didn't ask him, he was so out of breath, we didn't ask him how it happened. And now he's older than I am. And so that's what he said. He said his whole family was infected with the coronavirus. And over the last week, I had my annual checkup at the clinic in the big city, Springfield, and I got a chance to see my internist. And so did Mrs. Finelli. We had our appointments back to back. And everyone wore a mask. Everybody had a mask on. Now, this is one of those big hospitals. There are two big hospitals in Springfield, Missouri, multi-story building. So the clinic itself is the size of a hospital. No kidding. And it's one of the two big hospitals. And I got a chance to ask the reception person who, signed you in, if you will. So what do you think? She said, oh, it's terrible. And so I asked the nurse, what do you think? Oh, it's terrible. And I asked my internist, what do you think? Oh, it's terrible. And she said her husband works in, he's a specialist, and he works in the COVID floor. And it's really, and they're filled, not one empty bed in the COVID floor. And then I looked on the internet, for, Springfield's website. Well, it's, newsleader.com. That's the Springfield area newspaper. And it says here, latest headlines, area hospitals there too, report another record week for COVID-19 cases, anticipate surge would continue. This was as of October 3rd. Springfield's two major hospitals once again reached record numbers of COVID-19 patients this week as they reported 10 deaths in the first 2 days of October. Earlier this week, Cox Health, that's one of the two hospitals, hit a record 83 coronavirus patients. On Wednesday, Mercy, which is the other hospital, hit a new high of 71. Despite their reprieve on Friday, with Cox reporting 65 and Mercy 56, hospital leaders say there's a risk of those numbers they could climb again. So what I'm saying is what I heard firsthand from one of the internists at one of those big hospitals in Springfield, that the beds were filled, absolutely ties with what the Springfield news leader said. So I guess we could say it's probably right. So any comments about what's happening with COVID and it's spreading and it's tying up hospitals and nobody wants to go to hospitals? I mean, really, I don't want to go to the hospital. If I hurt myself, if I smashed my thumb, I would try to figure out something else besides going to the hospital, the ER. What are your thoughts on that, Dr. Shealy?
Well, as a matter of fact, I don't want to go to the hospital for anything. Period.
Yeah.
I'm tired of medicine.
I agree.
For anything at this point in my life. I would give myself, I can do that, an IV of vitamin C. I've done that many times in the past. I'd have no trouble giving myself an IV. But other than that, that's it.
Mm-hmm. Well, okay, that's a very good point. That's something I have on my list to talk about today with you. So, Donald Trump allegedly contracted the coronavirus, and so what did they do? Well, they gave him some steroids. They gave him vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. Now, if you subtract steroids from the equation, and they gave him one other experimental drug, if you subtract the experimental drug and the steroids, that's the recipe, the treatment, the protocol is exactly what you've been recommending from day one. Day one, Dr. Shealy, when, no change. So you were right on the money, and they just figured out that the treatment is what you recommended.
If we can believe anything they say.
Well, that's another thing. This guy is bizarre. I'm talking about the president. The other guy's even more bizarre. But going for a ride, allegedly, I mean, we don't even know if that's true. He there's some video of him hopping in the President Mobile, the black SUV, and it's actually a truck. It's really not a Suburban. It just kind of looks like a Suburban, has a Suburban body, but the glass is like 5 inches thick. It's really a diesel truck, and it does truck frame, and it's dropped this civilian-looking body on top of it. But it's not. It's a truck. It's a GM truck, specially made. There's nothing like a Suburban except for the exterior appearance of it. Well, it doesn't. You can't even hear inside it. It's got its own air system, and in order for the people inside to hear what's going on outside, there are microphones because it is that silent on the inside. You can't hear the outside noises. But so he went for a ride, allegedly, around the hospital, waving to people and saying, "Hey, I'm doing great." We don't know if that's true. We don't know if it's a body double. I mean, we don't know anything, and we can't believe anything. But if he did do that, wouldn't that be considered reckless behavior, Dr. Shealy? At least in my world it is, because he had his Secret Service in there.
Yeah.
Right.
But, as with everything else, there's nothing. I couldn't trust the mainline media to tell me the time of day. I look at my watch rather than listen to them. I don't trust one thing any of them says, including Fox. They're all evil, wrong, controlled by the evil empire, in my opinion.
Can you, now, Dr. Shealy, you and I are broadcasters. You have 3 times the experience that I do, literally, behind the microphone for years, 3 times in years that what I have, 10 for me and 30 for you. But can you imagine going behind the microphone and having someone tell you what to say, what not to say, etc.? I can't imagine what that would be like. I wouldn't do it. But I believe that those talking heads, they have a script. Someone writes it for them and, puts the commas in, the periods, the dashes, the exclamation points. They're really not who we think they are. They are just actors.
And
at least that's how I perceive it.
And PP actors at that.
Yeah. Something else I wanted to check with you about. Okay, so what I'm learning is that the coronavirus is linked, people who contract it are linked to a vitamin D deficiency. Here's what it says. According to headlines here, Daily Mail, since the COVID-19 epidemic started, multiple studies have repeatedly shown a link to vitamin D deficiency. And so you've been saying that for 10 years that I know for sure.
12
vitamin D,
years.
vitamin D, you gotta have it.
80% of people in this country are vitamin D deficient.
And so if we're vitamin D deficient, that would improve our chances of contracting all kinds of maladies, right? Not just the COVID-19.
Oh, of course.
But a whole bunch of others.
From a common cold to cancer.
So class, it seems crazy to me not to get some vitamin D. We'll be right back with Dr. Shealy. So I've seen a number of articles, different sources. Now maybe these all came from the same source, and they are just reposted. But allegedly, President Donald Trump repeatedly asked his aides if he was going to die from COVID while he was being airlifted to the hospital. And the top official, whoever that is, said his vitals are very concerning and the next 48 hours are critical. Now here's the point that I'm trying to make. If an aide was asked by the president, am I going to die of COVID? And that leaked out while he was being airlifted, that aide should be summarily fired. Absolutely. For breaching the trust of the president. Absolutely. because it makes him seem weak.
Well, and who knows, again, remember, I don't insult the bull, because
Yes.
it's an insult. It's too big a thing. That's why I call it whale instead of bull.
Yeah.
But, who believes that aid? Or
Well, see,
for saying it.
Oh, right. And that's the point, Dr. Shealy. If an aide said it, he should be fired, or she should be fired. If there were 3 or 4 of them, they should all be fired. If it was the media, they should be removed.
Well,
Everybody who...
the media anyway. I have removed the media from my I mean, basically, I do listen to the radio coming to and from the clinic. That's my entire exposure to the mainline media.
Okay. How do you find radio today? Because I've tried to listen to radio in Springfield. So, I'm driving and I'm hitting the button next. I can't find anything that I find worth listening to. Too many commercials.
I agree. I go between whatever it is, the university program and kick. I go back and forth between those two, and if there's nothing, I turn it off.
Okay, now kick is different. And what we're talking, kick class is Kick. And, I believe it used to be called KADI. When I was on there, I believe it's called KADI, AM 1340 Springfield. That's where I got my start. And that's where Dr. Shealy is now. AM 1340 there are, I believe, about 1,100 AM 1340s across the United States. Now I'm going from distant memory here, 1,100, stations. And the idea with that particular frequency is that it is low power, local. So 1,000 watts. Now, some of them go pretty far. One of them that was an affiliate of USA Prepares, KLID AM 1340, Poplar Bluff, Missouri, traveled really far and they had a great signal. So if the antenna is right and the grounding is right and it's constructed and tuned properly, they go pretty far. But they're local, which is, what's happening in the village. And that's what's great about AM 1340. And there's a resurgence because people want to know what's happening local. They're sick of what's happening internationally and nationally. They want to know what's happening in their village. So Dr. Shealy is now on AM 1340 KICK. Now, west of the Mississippi River, radio stations begin with letter K. East of the river, they begin with letter W. So that's how the FCC call sign is designated. The letter W, first letter, or the letter K, depending on location compared to the Mississippi River. Okay, Dr. Shealy, I had a chance to listen to you and Sergey Sorin, MD, for about an hour when you were on last week. Can you share with us how our class can listen to you? That was a brilliant broadcast. Succinct. You guys are great working together. Well,
first and foremost, we like one another. That's an important thing. That's why he's here. The first position in 50 years that I've trusted to take over for the future. But we are on 1340 AM, and the phone number, if one wants to call in to ask us a question, every Wednesday from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. is 417-447-1777. That is the call-in number to ask us questions, and we'll be on each Wednesday now, at least for this year and the rest of until this fall. Next year, we've got a year's contract.
All right. Hold that thought. We'll be right back, and we'll give you that number again, class. Dr. Norman Shealy's with us, and if you'd like to go to the website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. Dr. Shealy, one more time, that telephone number to call in during the hours of 4 p.m. Central Time to 5 p.m. Central Time.
417.
Yes.
447-1777.
Okay. Now, class, that is the telephone line, the call-in line, if you'd like to talk with Dr. Norm Shealy or Dr. Sergey Sorin Wednesdays when they are on the air live in Springfield, Missouri. So that's Central Time, 4 to 5 in the afternoon. And you can call in and ask your questions. I suggest you do what our callers here at USAP Preparers do, and that is, write down what you want to ask and have your notes ready so you can be succinct in your questions, and they will answer them. And so I got a chance to watch you, Dr. Shealy. You can watch it online if you'd like. And if you ask Dr. Shealy to join his mailing list, I believe he can send you a link with a reminder and say, here's what you click on. And that's what I got. And so I tuned in, and there you guys were in that studio. And I believe the studio that you were in was a little larger than the one that I was in when I was there. I think they took the station manager's office, and because there's a little fireplace in there, and they converted that to a studio. So it's a little bigger than the one that I was in. But and you'll get a chance to see what radio is like. You'll get a chance to see the engineer at the board. You'll get a chance to see answering the telephone and all that kind of thing. And you'll really get a chance to see what it's like for an in-studio broadcast at a local radio station. It's a little different from the former station you were on, right, Dr. Shealy? The equipment's a lot smaller.
Well, yeah, and actually, the video of it that you saw came from Sergei's phone. That's how he's filming what we're doing.
Okay, so did you have somebody with his smartphone aiming the camera? Is that how you did it?
Right.
Or was it on a tripod?
It was on a tripod, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's great. I mean, class, you can see the power of a smartphone then, because this radio broadcast was videoed and streamed live, and that's what I saw. So if you want that link, just go to Dr. Shealy's website, sign up for his newsletter, and I believe that's how you're going to get the link. Is that right, Dr. Shealy?
Right, absolutely.
Okay. I got to tell you, you recommended that a specific amount of iodine that I take daily, and to treat hypothyroidism. Well, George Bush said it. I made up this term, and he said that people, for all his life, he was underestimated. Well, I took the iodine, and I took the iodine, and I overestimated my youth. Wow. I mean, Dr. Shealy, within a few days, I was on the tractor, no brakes. I baled between 50, 60, 70 bales of hay, 70,000 pounds.
Not little bales.
Oh yeah. And I was normally, when the grass is really heavy, I'll be in first gear with this big tractor. And this is a 100 horsepower tractor, so the back tires are as tall as I am, maybe even taller. And it's you climb 3 steps to get in it, class. Literally. You climb 3 steps to climb into the tractor. So it's really a big tractor for an average sized farm here in Missouri. Well, normally I'm in first gear, sometimes second gear. I was in third gear. I was racing around. I thought I was on the racetrack. I was going to town, really moving, banging out this hay. Then I got on another tractor, a little 40 horsepower tractor with a front end loader. And I was throwing these bales around, moving them from, one spot of the field to the other, bouncing all over. I overdid it. I underestimated my youth by about 40 years. It had that effect on me. Dr. Shealy, is that typical? Or
not typical. That is unusual, but it happens.
No, okay. So, I was Rocky Balboa. I was unbelievable, and I still have the energy now. So I had to remind myself to take it a little easier than I did, because quite literally, I'm not as young as I used to be. And so I just dialed back a little bit. I dialed back to maybe 50 instead of 30. And I got to tell you, I'm really, really busy. I was busy before. Now I'm really busy. It's kind of like when I had that first Myers cocktail, and from your office, the vitamin C IV infusion. And called my son and I said, get ready. I'm 30 years younger. Get ready. I got a lot of stuff I want to do. And what I was telling him is, be ready because you're going to have a tough time keeping up with Dad. And that was my experience then, and that was my experience with the iodine. So, Dr. Shealy, now the question is, can you overdo the amount of iodine that you take? Yes. And what would that cause?
Well, then that pushes you back into hypothyroidism.
So you got to balance it.
It blocks your uptake of more iodine.
Okay. So how do you know? How do you know so we're talking about titrating it to the right amount, right? How do you know?
Well, in fact, here's the way I do it. You can take 150 micrograms a day or 12.5 milligrams a week. More than that can block the thyroid. Way back during the war, after the nuclear bomb thing, we were advised to keep on time extra iodine to take in case of a nuclear explosion because the radioactivity, it would block the uptake of radioactive iodine by the thyroid to take an excess.
Okay.
That's the only time you take an excess.
Okay. Now, an excess would be how much?
Well, again, I would not take more than 200 micrograms a day. I mean, what we know works is 150 micrograms a day, so I probably wouldn't go over 200 micrograms a day, which if you multiply that by 7 is really, about 1 iodoral a week.
Okay. So in my case, let's say 135 to 138 pounds, does that make a difference or not?
No, not enough to worry about.
All right. So for someone who is hypothyroid, underactive thyroid, is there a jumpstart amount or?
Well, not really. I mean, I think you can do it either as 150 micrograms a day because that's liquid iodine, or you can take the 1 iodoral a week. And at almost any weight, that's about where I would start. Now, the other thing that can help equally is stimulating the ring of fire. That particular circuit is good for the entire endocrine system.
Okay. And would you explain that for our class, for those who are new to our class, the ring of fire with Fire Bliss, Fire, F-I-R-E, space B-L-I-S-S, available on Dr. Shealy's website. So how do they do that, Dr. Shealy? How do you recommend they use Fire Bliss in conjunction?
The ring of fire takes about 30 seconds a day. You use Fire Bliss and you just press briefly into each of the points which are shown you in pictures that come with the Air Bliss.
Right. So, class, you will get a map of your body. It's a drawing, and it will show you the exact locations where you apply this Fire Bliss. Now, Fire Bliss comes in, remember the band roll-on deodorant? Well, it comes with in a little bottle, much smaller than that, with a roller ball, and you just apply that to these points, and just a little dab on these points, and you're done. So the way to do it, I think, is right out of the shower or right out of the tub, dry off, apply it, and you're done. Any comments, Dr. Shealy, on that?
Well, no, it's very safe. I've got hundreds of people using it, and interestingly, it not only helps your thyroid, but it's good for your immune system in general. Okay.
Now, I thought it was 7 drops of 200 micrograms once a day, but it's actually 7 drops of 200 micrograms once a week. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to have to dial it back because I did it times 7. I mean, I took it 7 drops a day, so I have to go back to 1 drop a day. Okay. Well, so far, I'm just fine. And so I should stop taking it for a week then, right, since I had 7 more drops this morning? And yesterday?
Yeah.
And the day before? And the day before?
Yep.
Okay.
I was done.
Okay.
Overdo it.
By the way, does that explain why I was in overdrive? Is that
possibly? You might have hyperkicked it.
Okay. And by the way, my temperature is adjusting, getting right back to the 98.6. I actually even hit 98.6. And that's what you would expect? Is that right?
Exactly. That is healthy.
Now, is that something that we can do to titrate, look at our temperature and say, okay, it's climbing. Let's say it starts at 9.
Way to determine thyroid function. Now,
Okay.
you should have been out of bed 3 or 4 hours. Because when you wake up, it's 1 degree cooler.
And it is. That's correct. It's around 97.6. And as I get moving, not so much when I'm sitting at the broadcast, but right after the broadcast, I'm racing around doing all kinds of things here at the farm. It climbs and climbs, and within maybe 3 hours, maybe 4 hours, it's at 98.6. And then when I go to bed at night, it drops back down. Is that what you would expect?
Exactly.
Okay. And when I say drops back down, about a degree or maybe 1.2 degrees lower after being in bed for a while. By the way, it's starting to get cold here. Cold out where you are, Dr. Shealy? I mean, it dropped in the 30s last night.
38 degrees last night.
Yeah. I wanted to tell our class, this is not medical, but it's medical for your automobiles and tractors. Class, as we get to 32 degrees Fahrenheit, that's temperature at which water begins to freeze. Well, that's if your battery is dead in your car. That's the temperature at which your battery will begin to freeze. And a couple degrees lower, when it does freeze and turns into a block of ice inside, you can't see it, but the electrolyte will turn to a block of ice, and it will split and damage and bend and break the lead plates. And they are not repairable once the mechanical damage has been done. So make sure your batteries in your vehicles are charged. Also, make sure that the antifreeze/coolant, depending on whether you're from the north or the south, whether you call it coolant or antifreeze, make sure that you test that. You can buy a tester at about $5 or $6. You can buy it at lots of the big box stores, including AutoZone as a automotive box store, big box store, and test it and make sure you're good to maybe at least -10. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us, medical doctor, and his website, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. And if you'd like to get an invitation and a link to his broadcast and his video of the broadcast, you can just go sign up for his newsletter. It's free, doesn't cost anything. It's short, very easy to read, and I think you'll enjoy it. And Dr. Shealy's been writing this newsletter for years. So just go to normshealy.com, sign up for the newsletter. Dr. Shealy, when I had my annual examination a few days ago, the nurse who she recognized me standing in the waiting room. I mean, with a mask on. Everybody had a mask on. She did too, and she was able to recognize me. And I was kind of surprised. I said, "You can recognize me from way over there?" And she said, "Oh yeah, absolutely." And she said, "You don't dye your hair?" And I said, "No, I don't dye my hair." And she was surprised that I don't dye my hair. What does it mean when your hair stays its natural color for a long time into your, middle age, etc.? Because I've seen people who prematurely gray or prematurely white. What does it mean if your hair color stays the same? Is that genetic? Is it diet? Is it just random?
Obviously, it's two things. One is it's a reflection to some extent of genetics, because that does run in families. I mean, I know families where, they start graying in their 20s and 30s. And the other is your overall health. I mean, the younger you are, telomere-wise, the younger you have not damaged, the better you have not damaged yourself with unhealthy habits, the less graying you're going to have. Now, honestly, I feel that since I started using the adrenoscaler, it has actually helped my some of my gray hair go away and turn back to natural color.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's an old saying, class, from Mickey Mantle, the New York Yankees. And you remember him from the 1960s as one of the greats. And he said something akin to this: if I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. That's what he said. Do you remember that quote, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Yep. If I knew I was going to live this long, I would have taken better care of myself. And so that, that brings the question.
The basic health habits are common sense. And remember, only 2.7% of Americans have enough common sense to obey all the 5 essential health habits. That's why the average life expectancy is 79 instead of 100.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Shealy, I remember some of my my schoolmates, the boys at the high school where I attended, and some of them were, really strong athletes, and they did things to enhance their athletic ability that would probably be frowned upon. And then there were others who did things to abuse their body to alter their mental states, temporarily, take a vacation from here and now and just, go off on some mind-bending experience. I had a chance to see some of those guys, the ones that survived, at my 25th reunion, which was a long time ago. And they had a lot more miles on them than those of us who didn't do those things. And it was absolutely crystal clear to me that lifestyle, avoiding drugs, avoiding, drinking to excess, smoking, all those behaviors that
at the top of the
body
list
tells
today,
you.
Sorry. At the top of the list today is obesity.
Mm-hmm.
72% of Americans are overweight.
Was that 72?
72%.
Mm-hmm.
And about 36% are just plain fat, obese.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you can see it. You can see it pretty much, if you're in your car and you're traveling, or if you happen to go to the store, you can see it. Well, I remember from my 25th high school reunion, and it was a long time ago, that there were, some of the guys who were, big then were really big. I mean, overweight. And some of them, you could see their faces. They had, more wrinkles. They had more miles on them than you would have thought that they would have had. And, so it's clear to me that smoking, drinking, not eating properly, fast, quote unquote, food is not good for you. And that leads me to what we can talk about, if it's all right with you when we come back, is they found some medieval toilets, 500 years old, and they still had poop in them. And of course it's all dried out, and they're doing some experiments. What would we expect to find from the diet 500 years ago as compared to the diet today? We'll be right back with Dr. Shealy after top of the hour. Yeah, fast food. How does that change the diet? Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, normshealy.com, and you can tune in on Mondays here at USA Prepares. And Dr. Shealy's here, and he's been with us for 10 years. And if you'd like to call, we'll pay for the call. You can talk to Dr. Shealy right now. Call-in number 866-582-9933, 866-582-9933. Before we get into the medieval toilets and what was discovered in them as they were unearthed, I wanted to mention one other thing, Dr. Shealy, about my checkup. So the internist, the doctor, was listening to me, and she said, "You don't have any PVCs." And she was thinking of years ago. And she was astounded. "You don't have any PVCs." And I said, "Oh yeah, I took care of that." And she looked at me and she was kind of shocked that, I just said, in a cavalier way, no, I took care of that. And I said, well, that, I'm, dear friends with Dr. Shealy, Norm Shealy. She said, yes. And I said, well, he's been saying for as long as I've known him that, magnesium lotion or magnesium spray, will fix that. And, I said, for me, I fixed it by tomorrow. And I said, it's as simple as that. And so she was looking at my blood work because I asked to have it, my blood looked at for all kinds of levels, and everything was just perfect. And everything was normal. And she was surprised that it was, no problems. And I guess when you're almost 70 years old, I guess they expect parts to fall off. And, as you walk down the store aisles, you drop parts as you go. And she was surprised that was not the case, and that my PVCs, and I guess she'd been thinking about, years and years and years ago when I had them, and because she's been my doctor for quite a long time, that I don't have any PVCs or irregular heartbeats. And Dr. Shealy, what percentage of people have irregular heartbeats?
Well, if you take irregular, including atrial fibrillation, I would guess 25 to 40%.
Yeah.
At one time or another. It's not uncommon because it means most of the time it's unequivocally related to magnesium deficiency, but could be due to excess adrenaline from some great stress.
Yeah. Well, literally, she was taken back by this. And so it's such a simple thing to apply the magnesium lotion or spray, and it absolutely works. But, actually some of our classes has followed your advice with, the topical addition of magnesium. And you've said for years that it is absorbed better through the skin than through, the oral method, through the distal colon. And for me, it worked so quickly. I recommend it all the time. And for Christmas gifts, Mrs. Finelli will buy, your magnesium lotion off your website, and we'll send it to, people who we think need it. And so, class, it's real simple. It really is. So any comments on that, Dr. Shealy, before we continue with the antique toilet?
To me, it's part of common sense.
Yeah. So archaeologists have discovered, they unearthed a medieval toilet. Now this thing looks like the construction of a log cabin. Okay. And it's not quite complete, but the excrement that was in the bottom of it is still there. So, researchers, medical researchers, scientists are looking at this. Now they found one in Israel and they found one in Latvia. And they're looking at the microorganisms from the gut of the people who use the toilets. And one of the things that they're looking for is, how is that different from today? Now that makes a lot of sense to me. How is it different from today? 500 years ago, we didn't have some of the modern conveniences like antibiotics. We didn't have vitamins and minerals and supplements, and we didn't have fast food. So I give you, some of the negatives and some of the positives. Okay. We didn't eat food colors, because we thought that red would be better than, whatever the natural color might be, and that blue would be better than whatever the natural color might be of food. So the marketeers have gotten involved in conning us into thinking that we should eat all this junk. Well, we don't know exactly what they're going to find, but, they did find some, fish tapeworm, eggs, that kind of thing in this poop, this dried out 500-year-old poop. What else do you think that they might find, Dr. Shealy? Because they haven't released their finding yet. Cause I think they're still working on it. What would you think they'd find in the microbiomes?
Well,
then
and
versus now.
what amazes me is that the microbiome could be even discovered this like hundreds of years later. But I would think they would find a lot more seeds and seed hulls, as well as possibly more evidence of, well, fish itself than other kinds of meat.
Yeah, because the knives weren't as sharp. They didn't have the grinding tools and the extrusion tools, and the canning that we have now. I don't think canning got really going until the 1700s. I think that, I could be wrong, but I think that's about when it got going. So what we're saying then is that the diet had more roughage and no processing then as now. No processing, right? Other than maybe grinding corn or wheat, right?
Right.
Okay. So do you think the diet do you think people were better off then?
Well, they didn't have the 80% of the food that's junk that is available to us, so that certainly was better.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, they didn't even know what, and of course they probably spent a lot more time outside, so they might have had more vitamin D. But the lack of D is a major, the two major contributors to illness today from diet are lack of vitamin D and lack of magnesium. The soil used to have more magnesium in it.
Yep. There's what would you recommend that we do as a proactive stance? To become more healthy as we face the spiraling down of health
at the top of the list is keep your weight, your body mass index between 18 and 24. Every pound of weight above a body mass index of 24 multiplies your risk of death. By the time you get to a body mass index of 30, your risk of death is that of a 3-pack-a-day smoker. You've lost 18 years of life just by being that overweight. No smoking. 22% of adults still smoke. And the next big one is lack of vegetables and fruits. The average American eats 2.2 servings a day. You need 5 to 8 servings a day. I start my day with 20 servings in a slush. And, of course, exercise. Sitting all day is equal to smoking a pack or 2 a day. And sleep. Well, if you sleep less than 7 hours, you have the same risk of death early as someone who smokes about a pack a day. You function at the level of someone who's slightly drunk. You are a cause of more automobile accidents than alcohol or drugs. So these are the basic habits. Now, in addition, you should take vitamin D3. We live indoors. I take 50,000 every week. Theoretically, if you weigh under 140 pounds, under 140, you get by with taking it 3 times a month, but it's okay to take it once a week still. Once you hit 140, you must take 50,000 once a week. You need a minimum of 100 micrograms a day of vitamin K2 if you're healthy. If you become unhealthy, you need to up your vitamin K to 15 to 45 milligrams a day. If you feel a bug coming on, knocking at the door, you feel like you're going to get a cold or flu, take 150,000 units of vitamin D3 3 days in a row, and then go back down to your regular dosage. Take my youth formula 4 a day, youth formula 4 a day, and add astaxanthine a minimum of 10 milligrams a day. Those are the basic supplement habits.
I got to tell you, I don't think most people do any of that.
Well, we know that 97.3% don't do one or more of it.
Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about our class.
I know. I'm talking about
USAP. I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm talking about the GDP, the generally dumb public. I don't think they do any of that.
Well, I mean,
okay. And I just want to make sure K2. I want to make sure I get that absolutely right. That was 15 to 45 milligrams a day if you feel something coming on. Is that right?
Yes. Now, I take. It's safe to take a huge amount. It does prevent clotting. Now, you can't take it if you're taking warfarin or rat poison, but actually, it does impress second to D3. It really helps your immune system. So I actually take 15 milligrams every day at least.
Okay. So 15 milligrams a day. Okay. Dr. Shealy, cholesterol. So cholesterol used to be a really big thing. I don't know if it is anymore. Go to the doctors and they would check your cholesterol. I don't know if it was a reward thing or they're trying to build a database. I don't know what it was, but it was almost like a fad that a doctor's visit would contain a cholesterol test and results. Is that something that still happens? Or
as far as I know, yes,
is it not
but
as
now they
popular?
want to get you on a statin drug. The worst treatment yet ever invented.
Okay. So then what does a person do to lower cholesterol? Because it seems like a lot of people have higher than desired cholesterol. Is that correct or not?
Absolutely.
Okay. So when we come back, would you please tell us what should we do to have the proper amount of cholesterol? If it is too high, how do we get it down? What do we do? What's the protocol to do it naturally, safely, and effectively? So we'll be talking about cholesterol when we come back. Class Dr. Norm Shealy is with us, normshealy.com, NORMSHEALY.com. We're going to be talking about cholesterol, how to reduce it. But Dr. Shealy, I just wanted to mention one other thing about this toilet that was found in the Middle East, and they're doing some research. Well, in the same article, they have this new application for your smartphone. This is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of, and it's called. Well, I think you're going to agree. This is going to be hard to beat in the world of dumb. They have an application that you can get and download. It's called Cheek, CHEEK, the number 2, Cheek to cheek. And this thing centers on people who are poop-centric, meaning they are obsessed with how it all works out while they're on the throne. And this application will help you find that ideal mate that has the same throne habits as you might. Not you, but I mean, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I mean,
well, of course, I call them dumb phones in the first place. The fact you use one means you're somewhat dumb.
But how drunk would a person have to get in order to say, I got a great idea? We will get people matched up based on how they sit on the toilet. That
stupidity, ignorance, and crap have no limit.
There you go. So I just wanted to share that with the class. I mean, we have lost our minds, but I hope this thing does I guess the term that we used to use when I was in California, it's like doing a swan dive in an empty pool. I think this application ought to have that amount of success. The amount of success that one might have doing a swan dive into an empty pool. It does not deserve success at all. Okay, so we're talking about cholesterol. What do we do? Because it appears
at the top of the list is don't eat any fast food restaurant, don't eat any trans fats, don't eat anything off the center aisles in your grocery store. That's the top of the list. Secondly, of course, if you are a autogenic training. That's the easiest way to reduce your stress. Third, exercise regularly. If you don't exercise 30 minutes 5 days a week, that's going to raise your cholesterol also. Now, once you know that you have, for genetic or otherwise reasons, a total cholesterol above 200, then I start you on trimethylglycine, TMG. For most people, if you weigh over 130 or 40 pounds, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. That plus 2 rounded tablespoons of lecithin granules twice a day will lower cholesterol perfectly in a huge majority of people. If those two don't work, you can also add beta-sitosterol for 100 milligrams 2 or 3 times a day, and Guggulipid, Guggulipid. Guggulipid, I think it's about 50 milligrams twice a day. Those things will control cholesterol in virtually 100% of people safely without the negative killing effects of statin drugs.
Okay, so I've got, and help me make sure I've got this right. So if your cholesterol is greater than 200, that'd be the bad cholesterol, you recommend trimethylglycine, 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day. Now, where does one get trimethylglycine?
Well, you get it from our website or our health food store.
Okay, so it is non-prescription?
Right.
Okay, and how does one take that?
Well, they're great big tablets, about the size of the last digit on my ring finger. And I don't like to swallow something that big, but they're very soft, so I just chew it.
Okay. And
they don't require any pressure to chew.
Okay. So are they 2,000 milligram tablets and you take one
1,000 milligram tablet.
Okay, so you take 2 of them 3 times a day. So that'd be a total of 6 tablets a day.
Yes.
Okay. When we come back, can you tell us the rest of the story about, I believe you said 2 rounded teaspoons of lecithin?
Exactly.
Twice a day. We'll talk about that when we come back. Okay, we're talking about cholesterol and how to reduce the bad cholesterol. So we're starting with 2,000 milligrams 3 times a day of trimethylglycine. That's available on Dr. Shealy's website. Second, Dr. Shealy, I believe you mentioned 2 rounded teaspoons of lecithin? Tablespoons. Okay. TBS.
Now, I use Now Products, which is a soy-derived thing. Some people don't like to take soy for anything, but you can buy a sunflower lecithin. I've never gone that route, but if you're fetish about soy, you can get it.
Okay.
It is good for memory as well as for lowering cholesterol.
Well, that sounds good to me. Now, Dr. Shealy, is sunflower considered a food? The reason I'm asking is that cotton is not considered a food. So because cotton is not considered a food, they can spray all kinds of chemicals on cotton and then use the seeds for oil that becomes a food.
Right.
So I'm concerned about that. I'm just wondering about sunflowers. I don't know if that...
Sunflower seeds are definitely a potential food, yes.
Okay.
They've got
all right.
good amino acids, of fatty acids as well as other things.
Okay. Our son likes to buy sunflower seeds and eats them on a regular basis as a snack. So is that something that you'd recommend?
That's good.
Okay. So 2 rounded tablespoons of lecithin twice a day, and then 400. Wait a second.
Milligrams.
Yeah, 400 milligrams of what? I got my notes all confused.
I love it.
Yeah. Well,
I gave it to you for a break. Quit when you did that. Guggulipid would be the next one, then possibly as well.
Okay, I have that. That was 50 milligrams twice a day.
Right.
Okay, so were you saying that the lecithin was 400 milligrams?
No, it was, we both had a senior moment.
Well, yeah, I was writing as fast as I can. And, people look at my signature and they go, are you a doctor? Because I can't read my own writing either. And I can't read my signature. But anyway, okay. So we do need to take the lecithin and, GUGLIPID, 50 milligrams twice a day. Is that a tablet?
Yes. A capsule, really, is the one that's
capsule. Okay. All right. And there was one other thing that we wanted to take 400 milligrams of, and that would be 2 to 3 times a day, you mentioned, but we don't know what it is. We'll come back to that. Okay. So my next question about reducing cholesterol, we talked about no fast food, no trans fats. So there are things that are really common to eat and probably in most people's diets that are high in trans fats. And that'd be cheeseburgers, and pies, and chicken nuggets, and donuts, and French fries. I mean, that's just to name a few.
Yep.
So
beta-sitosterol, by the way.
Okay, what was it?
Beta, B-E-T-A.
Right.
S-I-T-O-S-T-E-R-O-L. That's the 400 milligrams 3 times a day.
Okay. All right, now I've got it. Okay. All right. So we need to avoid those kinds of food, and then there's icing and cakes and pizzas and packaged. Well, popcorn. I guess. I was looking at popcorn. I went to samsclub.com and I was looking for just popcorn, not in a package, not as part of something else, not in one of those tear open the pack or throw it in the microwave, not a fast type popcorn, the old fashioned popcorn. I wanted to see what was available, and it's gone way up in price. But there are a lot of foods with popcorn that are pre-made because I guess we're too lazy to make our own popcorn. What do you think about popcorn as a snack made with butter? Is that okay?
I like it. Okay. I never make it because it's too much trouble, but I like it.
Okay. Well, there's air poppers, and you can just throw the kernels in this air popper. You press the button, and the kernels whirl around, and they come out the chute all popped. But I don't think it tastes as good as popcorn with butter. Well, what about red meat? Is it okay to eat red meat if you're trying to reduce your cholesterol?
Absolutely, but you want preferably grass-fed.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what you have, and that's what we have.
Yeah. You don't want grain-fed.
Okay, so is grain-fed beef, does that have more trans fats?
Yeah, it's not normal for any cattle to eat grain.
Yeah. Right. Okay, how about ice cream?
Well, it's not very good.
Okay.
But that's primarily because of the sugar, not the milk.
And it's not just milk anymore, right? It's all kinds of additives. And if you feel one of those containers of ice cream and you look at what you think it should weigh and you feel what it does weigh, you'll say it's missing a lot. And what's it missing? It's missing the ingredients, and it's pumped up with air. Literally. It's fluffed up. So microwave popcorn is bad, because if it's prepackaged.
Well, microwave's bad, period, in my opinion.
And that's what I want.
Absolutely damages the amino acids.
And that's what I wanted to ask you. So, for example, one can make a pot of coffee. And let's say you have one of those electric coffee makers. And not sophisticated, just put the coffee grounds in one of those reusable baskets, and you put your filtered water in there, you press the button, and out comes hot coffee. Now, a couple things can happen. You can leave it on the warming setting so it stays warm all day, or you can let it cool and then take that coffee that's in the pot, put it in a cup, put it in the microwave oven, and heat it. Now you can have warm coffee again. What is the difference, Dr. Shealy, in terms of health, heating or reheating coffee in the microwave versus letting it stay on the warming plate that's part of the electric coffee maker?
Well, microwave is damaging to you being in the room with it, first of all.
Right.
Secondly, it does damage the molecules in anything. I wouldn't even like to drink water boiled in a microwave.
Okay, so we have a choice then. For those of us who use an electric coffee maker, we can leave it on and let it warm, keep the coffee warm. And by the way, are you willing to drink coffee that has been sitting for an hour on the warming pan of the coffee maker, or does something happen to the coffee that makes it undesirable to drink?
I think it's okay to leave it on warm for an hour.
Yeah, because that's what we do. And
I don't think you can damage it with that.
Okay. And then what about, so how do we heat it? If we have the coffee and it's gone cold, but it's still good, let's say a couple hours, what about putting it in a stainless steel pan and heating that on the stove versus heating it in the microwave oven?
Well,
is it okay?
I prefer heating on the stove. I don't have a microwave, don't own one, never will. Mm-hmm. I put them in the same category as dumb phones.
Okay. And in class, I have done tests, and we have a leakage detector, and every single microwave oven leaks, bar none. I don't care whose you have, what brand it is, what size it is, they all leak. Just like nuclear reactors, they all leak too. So it's dangerous. And the idea of that window, if you look at it, has little holes in it. The door has a kind of a plastic covering, so you can look through and see what's happening while your food is being microwaved. Microwave radiation comes right through those holes. It's designed to minimize it, but it still gets through, gets around the holes in the door. So if you've got stuff, old food deposits around the door and the door doesn't close well, it's even worse, way worse. And I've tested this, so I know of what I'm speaking. So microwave ovens are dangerous. And they're so dangerous that Bert Bertonis measured many years ago, from up on the mountain. He measured the microwave activity down in the valley, in Silicon Valley. And he found peaks at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He could measure that the microwave activity peaked during breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And he attributed that to the use of microwave ovens. And now it's all day long. There are no peaks. It's just because people shifted their schedules, and all these microwave ovens leaking. These, tens or hundreds of thousands of them all running all day long. Different ones running at different periods, but they're running all day long. You can measure that. So the whole Silicon Valley floor is measurable with an increased level of microwave radiation. And it's cell phones, it's microwave ovens, it's microwave towers, it's point-to-point microwave communications. It's all of it. It's a sum of all of it's gone up. So continuing on with reducing cholesterol, cookies and cakes, frozen dinners, crackers. We're talking about, things that come in boxes and bags in the store, right? Not so good?
Well, to me, they're all junk because they have all kinds of added junk. I don't buy such stuff.
Yeah. In the good old days, Dr. Shealy, some people might have gone to the Chinese factory outlet and bought a birthday cake for, a loved one in the family, celebrate birthday. And they would have blue and green and orange and, all these colored decorations, additives, sprinkles, etc. on top. And some even had it inside. So not only is it the trans fats, but we're looking at the colors. Do you consider colors, this non-essential colors added to food, as dangerous as well?
Yeah, I think they're junk.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Then,
by the way,
yes.
People who stand in the room with a microwave have an increased risk of cataracts, as do those who use cell phones a lot. Excess dumb phone use increases cataracts as well.
You know, it's very interesting that that you're saying these things, because I don't think it's possible today to convince the GDP that they should knock it off with the microwave ovens. I don't think it's possible to convince the GDP that they should knock it off with the cell phones. They are addicted to it. They are addicted to convenience. And the proof of that, being addicted to convenience, I've got an old truck, and it has a manual shift, Dr. Shealy, stick shift, 5 speeds. So it's you actually have to drive it. It doesn't drive you. You have to drive it. Dr. Norm Shealy's with us. George, you'll be with us in just a second. I just wanted to mention, class, that I have a truck, and it's a pickup truck, and has a manual 5-speed transmission. So, and you actually have to drive it. You have to use the clutch. You have to pay attention. You have to know about the engine speed. You have to know about your speed, whether you're going uphill, downhill, whether you're turning, whether you're starting. You actually have to pay attention if you have a car with a manual transmission. Well, we've become lazy, and the automatic transmission was developed so that we could just put it in drive or neutral or reverse or park much easier. Just step on that accelerator and off you go. And if you want to slow down, you hit the brake. Well, that seemed to be too much for a lot of us, and so cruise control, because it's too hard to step on the gas pedal and you know, control your speed yourself. So you have it do it. And that became too complicated. So now we have self-driving rolling coffins. And they wear the badge Tesla. So you can buy a Tesla rolling coffin, and it'll do it all for you, and it'll just take care of your final arrangements. And you might not even need a coffin, because it's a rolling coffin, and depending on how it ends your life, you might just stay right inside that rolling coffin. And that's because we're too lazy. We want to watch movies while we should be driving. So I think we've lost our minds. George, welcome. George in New Hampshire.
Hi, Vin. Hi, Dr.
Hey.
Shealy. I got a question for Dr. Shealy. Dr. Shealy, I've noticed that with some of the returning veterans who are in armored vehicles in the last couple of wars they've had out in the Middle East, I've noticed a lot of them are developing a condition where they can't walk, and it really shortens their lives, and they said it was because of the radio waves. And what Vincent just said about, the four-wheel coffins there riding down the road, with all the electronics they're putting inside of the box called the car, I'm wondering, is that exposing a lot of people to a lot of unhealthy, radiation and electromagnetic and so on?
Almost certainly to some extent, George. On the other hand, I don't know. There are no studies that I know of. I tried to find it on the internet, and I can't. But I suspect that spending hours in a car every day is not good for you.
Dr. Shealy, you can do that test today. You can do a pilot study today, and here's how you can do it. I've done this, and it would be great to see if your results are the same as mine. So you have a tri-field meter, and so do I. And we had a visiting friend, came from Virginia, and he came up in his brand new Audi, and it was one of those little Audis, and it, a lot of sophistication, a lot of electronics in Audi. They're a technological rolling coffin, I guess, as well. And we got in this, and I said, I'd like to see how much electromagnetic radiation is in your car. And he wasn't concerned at all. And so we brought I gave him the tri-field meter. I set it for him, and he put the key in the ignition, and it instantly pegged to the maximum. I mean, that needle hurt itself flying over to the maximum of the range. And I have a feeling you'll find the same thing in pretty much any modern vehicle. So I'd love to know what your thoughts are if you try that, Dr. Shealy.
Oh, God. tomorrow morning.
Yeah. And I have a feeling, and I'll try it in my old truck and see what happens. This truck has, it's a 2001. It doesn't have electric windows. The only thing it has is, air conditioning. And, that's it. That's all it's got. And a radio. Air conditioning and a radio and windshield wipers. Other than that, it's real plain. No electric seats, no seat warmers, just plain Jane. Back to you, George.
I was going to say that we three men here are probably a last of a breed who don't carry a cell phone, correct?
Yeah.
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 I mean, that's actually becoming a badge of pride. What do you think, Dr. Shealy?
Absolutely agree.
I was going to say this. The Swiss did a study on what you mentioned before about food put in the microwave, and I agree with Dr. Shealy that the water has an off taste to it. It ruins a cup of tea or coffee, and I haven't had some of that water in many decades. The other thing is, I noticed it turned like bread, like a bagel, and it would turn it like rubbery. But they said the Swiss did a study, and they said that it changes the molecular structure of food sufficiently that it will not be recognized by the body as food, and it just goes right through the system, and you don't get any nutrition out of it, or very reduced nutrition.
Absolutely.
Well, here's an interesting thought. We only have a couple seconds, gentlemen, but try putting bad gas in your car. See how it works. You'll be hoofing it. Or pushing the car. Put bad gas in it, and it doesn't work worth a darn, if at all. So it's like putting bad food in your body. Dr. Shealy's been warning us about this for years. Dr. Shealy, thank you. George, thank you.